This is Podcast Theory.
Again, fellow podcaster, and welcome to Podcast Theory Live. I'm your host, Jason Sircone. It is Monday, July 1st, and we are kicking off a brand new month with a brand new live episode of Podcast Theory Live. Today, I want to take some time to reflect and think back on this past weekend, which was the inaugural Empowered Podcasting Conference that took place in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was in the house doing some MC work. I got to lead a panel discussion about social media and podcasting and why I feel, as well as my panel members. And what we learned is everybody in the room, why podcasting is becoming a better version of social media. So much to unpack. So much went down this weekend. Honestly, trying to go live and do this here in a setting of just talking to you in the bomb squad, it doesn't do it justice. If you're in my email community, you know, I shared some things this past week about why I feel these live events are so important. And I really got to feel that once again this weekend. This was one of the first live events I've been to in a while. And my advice to anybody, no matter what industry you're in, find an event, find a conference that brings more like-minded people like yourself together, because the magic that takes place when everybody is in those collective environments, sharing ideas, sharing hugs, sharing high fives, laughing, bringing the camaraderie to the surface, it can't be duplicated. It can't be replicated anywhere else. Now, we have gotten very accustomed to doing a lot of things over the computer, very digital world that we live in today. No question that has changed the podcast industry, but overall it's changed society. It's changed culture. A lot of us have gotten very used to this type of communication, almost in some cases to a fault, because if we can't take a minute to break away from the computer, we're costing ourselves that real human interaction. And doing that is just robbing yourself of so many great things happening. So Empowered Podcasting was all about bringing independent podcasters together to learn, to share, to grow, and to connect with one another. And that was absolutely what I got from this past weekend's event. Now, was it 100% everything went smoothly? Of course not. Even the most tenured of events have some small hiccups along the way. But what I love to see happen was the team that brought this event together work their ass off to overcome any type of hiccup, any type of just anything that might have slowed things down and thrown things off track. Everybody was doing their part to make everything come back together. And at the end of the day, everybody in attendance felt that. And the impact that that brought to the audience, second to none. So for a first-time event to go as successfully as it did and to get the feedback that has come in so far, you got to be very, very happy with what transpired. But I know in talking with some of the organizers that put this year's event together, the outlook for future events is even brighter, because there were so many great people in the room sharing ideas, bringing all this to life. But again, that collective community environment, it's so important in our lives. And think back to where we were just a couple of years ago when we were unable to get together. At least in some cases we were able to, but we had to wear masks. We had to take all of these precautions. Now we're living in a different world. Thankfully, all of that stuff is behind us, and we're able to gather together and become a stronger community because of it. I know that's one of the big things that I took away from my time in Charlotte this past weekend, along with what I feel is going to be something very powerful in my own practices. Just getting that opportunity to sit with people, break bread, tip a few drinks, and put our minds together. This is why I am such a proponent of getting out to events like this. If you're in the podcast space and if you're listening to this podcast or watching this live stream, I have to assume to some degree you are. Events like this are what it's all about, because you can learn so much from the people that are on stage talking to you and giving you this information. But just as much, there's so much value in the hallway conversations, in the coffee chats, in the impromptu podcast episodes that might come together, the impromptu live streams. Everybody was finding new ways to connect and network, and it was so fun to watch. There was a moment where I sat back on Saturday when I had sat with my friends Alex and Alicia Sanfilippo, and we chatted for a while, and it was great to finally meet them in person, but then to catch up because we hadn't really talked in a while either. So hearing what they've been up to with Podmatch and everything they've been doing to impact the podcast space, and me sharing some of my ideas, it was fantastic to get an opportunity to do that. But where I ended up sitting was giving me this outlook or this view of the whole house. And once our conversation broke up, I just took a minute to sit back and watch the interaction and watch how everybody was coming together, uniting as one, supporting one another, growing together. It was amazing to watch that. And when you truly put a different set of eyes on something like that, it can be inspirational and it can add a ton of value to your world. So I want to say hi to the organizer, one of the main brain trust behind Empowered Podcasting, the community, and the event, Mr. Mark Ronick. Hi, Mark. Glad you could join me this morning. Hopefully some more of our community members are here. I want to say, before I get into the 5 big takeaways that I brought home with me from the Empowered Podcasting Conference, a message to you out in the Bomb Squad. If you are one of the people that was with us this past weekend, please drop some comments, say hello. Let me know one of your big takeaways. I'd love to know how this weekend inspired you, how it made you grow as a podcaster, and what you plan to do next now that you've got all of this knowledge and hopefully a lot more connections and relationships from what happened this past weekend. So let me get into my 5 takeaways and we'll keep the ball rolling. Like I said, if you have any comments and if you're here watching live, please take a moment to drop them in the chat. But my big takeaway number 1, and this is pretty easy, I've pretty much touched on this already. Community is everything. And I got to say that I've said this before, and I know in being part of this community and a few other different communities in the podcast space that are so tremendous. It's just it's getting that opportunity to see a community come together and share ideas, make new friendships, build on existing friendships, set up collaboration opportunities. Community is where it's at. And if you've got people in your community that are willing to help you grow, to support you along the way, to understand that this isn't always easy, but they're willing to take time to share their insight, give you the guidance that you need, or just be an ear if you need to vent and blow off some steam. Being a part of a community that's active, that is doing things on a daily basis to make their community stronger, that was on center stage this whole weekend. And I know this was the comment I left on one of the posts in our Facebook group for Empowered Podcasting, that this was the beginning of something huge. That was my feeling. I hope you felt the same way if you were in attendance, because I feel we're just getting started. And there is so much to build on. And this weekend brought a lot of positive outcomes and a lot of positive visions for the future. Mark, I have to agree with you. The journals were huge. A big shout out to Johnny for putting those together. And as attendees know, they helped with the organization in regards to keeping notes. But I think this was brought up at our closing breakfast yesterday. The fact that the networking aspect that came from the yearbook feature, which was a tremendous touch. Everybody was going around and having people sign their yearbook and leaving notes. And unfortunately, our friend Lloyd George couldn't be in the house. And I know there's going to be something special coming for him. I don't want to spoil the surprise, but it goes in tandem with that. And I think that feature alone was something that brought the networking piece of this whole event really to the forefront, because it was so fun to, I mean, I think in most people's, I wrote like, what a wild and crazy ride it's been, just like this nonsense we used to write back in high school. It was such a cool feature. I think that's going to be something that we have to lead into for future events. But the journals absolutely were huge, and so many people were utilizing those throughout the weekend for not just the aspect of keeping notes and writing down important thoughts they might want to remember when they get home and turn the mic back on, but for that yearbook feature alone, definitely a home run for the journals. So I'm going to move on to my second takeaway. Real life networking cannot be beat. I got to finally shake hands, fist bump, give big hugs to so many people that I've been friends with in a digital capacity, to add that real human element to things. Man, I'm telling you, that is something that cannot be topped. So a couple people that I finally got to meet in person for the first time: Simona Costantini, Nick Nullbach. Now, Nick Nullbach, I'm saying his name right, Nick Nullbach. Sorry, Nick. And Karen Freeland, Matt Shields, Megan Shields. I think the list here could go on and on. Dominic, again, I probably shouldn't have even started this list, because now I feel like I'm going to leave some people off. Anna Xavier, another one. Just amazing to get to finally be in the presence of these people and take what has been a great relationship through the computer now into real life. And it makes all of this so much more real. But in addition to that, just being around other podcasters and bringing that networking feature to the forefront, having those powerful conversations, as I said earlier, getting out and joining people at these events, this is what can come from it. Whenever I go to a live event like this, whether it's something big like Empowered Podcasting, or even if it's something smaller on a local level, I'm constantly trying to make new relationships, build my network so I can continue to grow on every conceivable level. So this weekend was all about that. And I came home with plenty of new relationships built, plenty of new opportunities in the hopper, and a lot of new ideas that I gained just from talking with others and having those one-on-one conversations. Some really big things will be coming soon that I don't want to really spill the beans on yet, but I'm telling you, getting out, networking, whether it's on a small local level or getting to a big event, it's going to change your life. It's going to bring so much value into your world. You do not want to overlook this. So we're getting loaded with comments. I want to say hi to Ashley, and Ashley wants to say hi to Mark. So, hey guys, I know it's funny. Mark said we were taking today off from the podcasting morning chat, but here we all are coming together here on Podcast Theory Live, and I'm happy to see it. So let's take a look at my takeaway number 3. Keep the main thing the only thing. This was a point brought up in Alex Sanfilippo's presentation, and it really made me snap back and bring some things into perspective, because I'm a big fan of the book, The One Thing. And I've always tried to keep that philosophy front of mind of keeping your focus on the one thing, so everything else becomes unnecessary. And Alex really made me think about that very strongly from a podcasting sense in his presentation. So I want to thank Mr. Alex Sanfilippo for that point. But I think the overall lesson that you can take from that takeaway is the fact that we as podcasters can sometimes overcomplicate what we're trying to do. And if we try to put too much emphasis on the wrong thing, we start losing focus on the main thing. So keeping your focus on what you really want to accomplish and staying consistent as you do that, it can be a real game changer. And even if it doesn't lead to the world blowing up and massive results coming your way immediately, it's going to help you keep your sanity, and it's going to help you keep your focus where it needs to be. So today, one thing you can do is try to focus on one major thing in your podcasting endeavors, even in your day-to-day activities, even if it's outside of the podcasting realm. Try to focus on one thing and keep that main thing front of mind at all times. When you're building out your content, when you're thinking about how you want to communicate with your audience, keep your focus on the one main thing that's going to drive your success. That's going to keep you happy. It's going to keep you engaged. And ultimately, it's going to lead to a better product that you get to share with the world when it's all said and done. So what do we got now? Okay, so sharing some more comments. I think one thing also was a big focal point during Johnny's intentions presentation, for sure. I know I complimented Johnny on his delivery. That was so well done, and everybody in attendance can agree, because that was one of the big presentations that we all got to see before the different tracks began. Johnny knocked it out of the park. And again, a big reminder of why it's so important to focus on one thing. You start focusing on too many things at once, it becomes very hard to manage. Just to simplify this whole point, if you can keep your focus on one thing, you're going to do big things. All right, moving on to my third, fourth? Which one am I doing here? Yeah, that was 3. Okay, moving on to point number 4. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And the reason why I felt this was a big takeaway is because I didn't see a lot of wallflowers this weekend. And that was awesome. Everybody was engaged. Everybody was jumping into conversations. Mark, I know you're watching. I know you made it a big point to let everybody know, if you see somebody that's just hanging out on their own, welcome them into your conversation, bring them into your circle. And we saw so much of that, because we live behind a computer screen, behind a microphone sometimes, right? Like, this is where we're at. This is where the content comes to life in most cases. So sometimes it can become easy to just negate or kind of pull yourself back and put yourself behind your phone and not be engaged in what's happening in front of you. I think back to the whole weekend, and I spent the whole weekend talking and being around people and loving every second of it. But I can say with full confidence, if I had left and not been actively participating in all of those conversations, I would have felt a very big feeling of regret for not taking advantage of all of those opportunities that lie in front of me. So when you're in those environments, you need to put yourself out there. As a podcaster, you need to put yourself out there with everything you do, with the content that you produce, with the message that you're bringing to the world, and even in reaching out to other podcasters to perhaps be a guest on their show or have them be a guest on your show. The worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to get a no, or you're going to get no response. Big deal, right? Move on to the next person. Never be afraid to reach out because you're afraid to hear the word no. We're going to hear a lot of no's in our lives. Up to this point, I don't even know how many no's I've heard. And I know that sentiment is echoed by so many people. And it's all the no's that bring you to a yes, to bring an old sales cliche into things. You have to think about what you're doing to be extroverted as much as possible. And even if you do lean more to the side of introversion when you're in person with people, take a minute to just try to find some common ground with someone, ask some simple questions. A big part of what I thought about the whole weekend for me, it's all about bringing the act of podcasting into a real life scenario. So when I was leading my panel discussion, I was treating it as if I was hosting one of my live streams or hosting my podcast. That was giving me the opportunity to speak with everybody in the crowd, much like I would if I was sitting with somebody one-on-one. And to my amazing panelists, Sean Douglas and Stacy Sherman, they were able to contribute the same way. So bringing that podcaster's mentality to the stage allowed me to open up, and it allowed me to be very natural in the delivery of that panel and everything that we shared with the audience. I felt came across much more naturally, just because I relaxed and I brought myself into a zone of, this is like a podcast. This is simple engagement. This is one-on-one, focusing on the conversation that lies ahead, keeping active listening front of mind. Put yourself out there when you go to these events and think of it like that. Think of it like when you sit down to do these podcast interviews, you're going to come back with so much more value when the event is over. And my final takeaway from this weekend, it doesn't just take a village. Now, I know that's the big saying, right? It takes a village. I think it takes all of the villagers that are there, plus all of the people, the villagers welcomed into the village for the party. That was what we saw this weekend. That is my segue to say a major thank you to anyone and everyone who had a hand in putting the Empowered Podcasting Conference together. To say that things went as smoothly and, like I said earlier, 100% no mistakes, of course not. We're never going to have that no matter what. Even the most tenured events are going to have some things they have to deal with. There's always going to be a couple fires to put out. But these guys did an amazing job, and all of the other villagers, all of the people that the villagers welcomed into the party, they were there to make sure the event ran smoothly as well. From all of the volunteers, even to all of the attendees, doing what they needed to do to keep conversations going, to participate with the presenters. They made every room come to life. So if you were part of this in any way, shape, or form, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for making this weekend special for me, but making it special for everybody else in this community. We have so much more that lies ahead with what we're going to do with Empowered Podcasting, and I am freaking excited to see what that is. The best thing you can do now is join us every morning for the Podcasting Morning Chat. Mark's podcast, which features myself, Simona Costantini, Nick Nelbeck, so many more, Dominic Lawson. There's so many names that go, Ashley Feller, who's here with us today too. So much takes place in that morning chat every morning, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Find it on Clubhouse. You can join the conversation. Everybody that's part of the group gets to come on stage if they have something to say. Tomorrow, we are going to be doing an official recap of the Empowered Podcasting Conference, and I am very excited to hear what Mark and the rest of the team that put this event together have to say. So I'm going to share a few more comments. Johnny, what's up, my friend? Got a nice big 100 from Johnny the whole weekend. Ashley says, yes, well done. I agree with Ashley. And like I said, there you go, Mark. You're absolutely right. The non-volunteers, those are we'll call them the ones the villagers invited to the party. They were stepping up too. Everybody was coming in strong. Everybody wanted to make this event as successful as possible. And the fact that so many people that were in attendance wanted to jump in and volunteer where they could, it shows the power of this community. And that is a tremendous foundation that we can grow upon. As Johnny said, the energy was incredible. And to you, sir, you're welcome. I'm glad I was able to bring this live stream to life. As I said, I told Mark this morning, this was actually going to be a 5-day series. And I had said this last week on Podcast Theory Live. I was going to do one takeaway a day and really expand on each takeaway. But here's the deal. I'm very calendar illiterate, apparently, forgetting it was 4th of July week. And I've got some plans on my schedule that I want to attend, and as I'm sure you do too, that does not include watching live streams every day. So for Podcast Theory Live this week, I wanted to obviously talk about the event while it was fresh on my mind, which we're getting done today. I'm going to do one more episode tomorrow, and then going to take the rest of the week off, come back fresh after the 4th of July weekend, and we will roll from there. Johnny, I was going to add this as my 6th takeaway, as a bonus takeaway. I learned I can't do anything now that involves speaking without brushing my teeth first. So I want to give a big shout out and thank you to Johnny, who helped me get a toothbrush, get some toothpaste, and then took a couple nice pictures and videos of me getting ready for my panel discussion by brushing my teeth in the hotel bathroom. That had to happen. And apparently this is super on brand for me now that I can't not do anything. So I obviously, here we are live. I brushed my teeth before I came on here. I'm going to keep this thing going because dental hygiene rules, Bomb Squad. If you're not thinking that you should be brushing your teeth at all times, you need to think differently. I'm sure all the dentists of the world would agree with me. So Johnny, thanks for the support. Thanks for the assist. Glad I was able to make the mouth fresh and clean before the panel discussion. Because I know I told you this, Johnny. If I had not, I would have been thinking about it the whole time, which is kind of sick, but it is what it is. So, my friends, it was a hell of a weekend. And if you were in attendance, I'm sure you agree. If you were not in attendance, I highly recommend You join the community, start with Facebook, and start with the morning chats every morning on Clubhouse. Lots to share tomorrow for sure. I'm very interested to see how we're going to pack that into 1 hour, but I'll be part of it to see. If you're not part of that part of the community in either of those respects, Facebook or Clubhouse, that's my first recommendation. That's going to get you in the loop, and you'll know when the next event is coming to life, and I look forward to seeing you there. So that is going to wrap up this Podcast Theory Live special edition, sharing my 5 big takeaways from the Empowered Podcasting Conference, which took place June 28th through June. Boy, getting all tongue-tied here. Oh, man, maybe the whole toothbrush thing or teeth brushing thing is throwing me off here. The event took place June 28th through 30th. A future event is already being talked about. I hope you're ready for it. My name is Jason Sircone. This has been Podcast Theory Live, and I will be back with you tomorrow. Well, I don't know exactly what we'll be talking about tomorrow, but I guarantee you it's going to be something podcast related, because I want to finish off strong before we roll into the 4th of July here in the US of A. That will do it for today. Thank you to Johnny, to Ashley, to Mark, to anybody else watching who maybe didn't drop a comment but was here for the show. I greatly appreciate it. Mark saying that we may have to go longer than an hour tomorrow. I can absolutely see that happening. And that's okay, because I know we have a lot to talk about. Thank you, Ashley. It was a pleasure to get to meet you as well this weekend, and look forward to getting to talk with you and work with you more as we bring these podcasting morning chats to life each and every weekday. So that is going to do it for Podcast Theory Live. I'm really doing the sign off here, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jason Sircone. Until our paths cross again, this has been a good talk, and I will see you out there. Take care.